Her father's nephews kicked in the door, demanding their share of the land. Autumn McConnell, 72, daughter he hadn't spoken to in decades, didn't even stand. She slid them the will, signed, witnessed, bulletproof, and tapped record. By dusk, every acre was sold. The farmhouse, too. She'd been erased from the family line once. Now she erased it back, legally. And when they came to claim his legacy, the county said, "You missed your turn. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe." The paper was thick, cotton blend, watermark faint in the corner. The kind used when people wanted things to look official, as if weight gave truth. Autumn Ray McConnell sat across from a walnut desk, her back straight, her hands still. She didn't smile. The man across from her, Lawrence Pike, estate attorney, second generation in his father's practice, cleared his throat like he was about to read a eulogy. "You're listed as sole executor, Ms. McConnell, effective immediately. Durable authority, health care, property, financial. He signed it all over last Thursday. Witnessed, notarized, certified." She said nothing. Lawrence pressed on, tone tight but respectful. He was adamant, insisted it be you. No co-signers, no contingencies, just you. Autumn nodded once. She didn't ask why Calvin had chosen her. She didn't remind Lawrence that Calvin hadn't said her name aloud in over 20 years. Not before the stroke, and certainly not since. The lawyer slid the papers forward, a capped black pen resting on top. "This is the final confirmation of your authority. Once you sign, all assets become your legal responsibility." She picked up the pen. The cap clicked off like the cock of a trigger. She signed her name slowly, Autumn Ray McConnell. The R curved slightly sharper than she remembered from the last time she wrote it on something that mattered. When she was done, Lawrence collected the forms like museum artifacts. He didn't ask questions, he'd been warned not to. "You'll receive the property keys by courier this evening. The accounts are being transferred by end of week. The, land assessor can meet you on site as soon as Monday." Autumn stood, smoothed the front of her coat. The room smelled like stale mahogany and forgotten time. "Is that all?" she asked. Lawrence hesitated. "One thing he said, before the second stroke, he told me, no one else, only her." Autumn paused at the door. "That was a hell of a thing," Lawrence added, "considering, well, everything." Autumn looked at him like someone watching a man try to clean a bloodstain from white carpet. She didn't answer, just walked out. The drive was silent, no radio, no calls, just the low hum of tires against old asphalt and the distant rattle of dried sycamore leaves bouncing in the breeze. Mississippi unrolled around her like a frayed quilt, flat and brittle in the late afternoon light. Mailboxes leaned sideways. Yards held rusted-out tractors and kids' bikes with no tires. It had always been this way, but now it felt more like a symptom than a place. As she neared the turnoff for McConnell land, the trees thickened, fencing gave way to brush, and the gravel road split like a scar across the property. Autumn pulled to the shoulder and sat for a moment, engine running. She stared at the gate. Warped wood, padlock untouched, the no trespassing sign half faded from sun and contempt. She reached into her purse, pulled out a small key ring the courier had dropped at the hotel front desk an hour earlier. One key for the farmhouse, one for the equipment shed, one for the gate. They jingled faintly as she stepped out and approached the chain. Her boots crunched against the frost-bitten gravel, her breath white in the air. She unlocked the gate, pushed it open. It groaned like it remembered everything. No one came to greet her. Not that she expected anyone. Lucas's truck wasn't parked under the pecan tree. Dean hadn't left his usual crushed beer cans near the barn. The porch light was off, and the front screen hung crooked on its hinges. She stepped inside without knocking. Dust curled through shafts of light like cigarette smoke. The house smelled of old wood and cheap soap. A pile of unopened mail sagged on the side table, addressed to Calvin in a looping, outdated hand. In the corner, a frayed recliner still faced the television, the same chair where he used to sit and say nothing, where she had once screamed into silence and he hadn't blinked. Autumn walked into the kitchen, touched the edge of the sink. Cold metal. Same scratch across the backsplash where her cousin shoved her in 1963. She had bled into that porcelain, swallowed her scream, and wiped it clean. She turned on the light. One bulb flickered, the others didn't come on. It didn't matter. She had everything she needed, and no one had to say a word. The first appraiser arrived in a county-marked pickup, boots caked in river mud, clipboard in hand. He didn't recognize her, just gave a polite nod and asked where the barn keys were. Autumn pointed without speaking. The man tipped his cap and walked off, already muttering into a voice memo app. By noon, there were 4 trucks on the property. Real estate agents, land use experts, one soft-spoken woman with a drone tucked in her backpack, and a tape measure longer than Autumn remembered doors ever needing. The house came first. Original hardwood, beadboard ceilings, tin roof in decent shape, though moss had eaten one corner raw. Then the shed, then the barn, then the tractor sheds with Calvin's old deer collection, half of them still operable, the rest glorified rust gardens. The agents trailed behind her, scribbling fast. This much land adjacent to Highway 12? Unsubdivided since the 60s? Are those working irrigation lines? Jesus, this place is a time capsule. She offered no commentary. Just walked the fence lines and opened gates. By the end of the second day, a man in a Navy windbreaker with state insignia on the chest removed his sunglasses and said, "Ma'am, this estate, if liquidated properly, you're sitting on 7 figures, easy." Autumn blinked. Good. He cleared his throat. "We'll send the breakdown next week. Lot lines, utility rights, mineral potential. You want us to split it for sale?" She nodded. 6 parcels, evenly spread. Don't get sentimental about the old tree line. The man scribbled, "Copy that." He waited like he expected a question, a reason, a family anecdote. She offered none. Word got out faster than winter spreads across Delta clay. The third morning, 2 men from the feed store drove by slow, windows down, heads craning. By the week's end, the diner had swapped their chalkboard pie listing to read, "McConnell land going, blueberries still here." Autumn caught a group of teenagers filming a TikTok on the southern ridge, one girl squealing, "Y'all, this is gonna be condos." She called a surveyor over and had them mark the eastern boundary in bright orange paint. She didn't yell. She didn't need to. The last file to sign was nearly an inch thick. Title preps, transfer options, zoning overlays. She sat at the kitchen table, the one where Dean once slammed a fist over a poker loss, and Calvin never told him to stop. She opened the folder and signed each page methodically. Autumn Ray McConnell, 72 years old. No husband, no children, no one left to answer to. She signed without hesitation. The last sheet slid into place like the lid on a coffin. That evening, she drove 40 miles south to the nursing home. The receptionist looked up, then quickly down again. Calvin's room was on the 2nd floor. Window facing the sunset, because he used to complain about the cold. Now he didn't complain about anything. The nurse nodded as she passed. "He's the same." Autumn stepped inside. He was propped up in the recliner, a plaid blanket tucked over his legs. His eyes followed her slowly. No blink, no twitch, just tracking. "Busy week," she said. No answer, of course, just that blank stare as if watching a television just out of tune. She stepped closer. "They're calling it the biggest sale this side of the county since the poultry plant in '98. I signed everything this morning. 6 parcels, farmhouse included." She leaned in, her voice flat. 4 buyers, 3 out of state. One's a developer with no last name, just an LLC. She unzipped her coat. Inside the lining was a folded map, each parcel marked in red. She held it up. "Don't worry," she said. "They'll rip it apart piece by piece, just like they ripped me." His eyelids flickered. Once. Could have been a spasm. Could have been recognition. Could have been guilt curling under skin. She folded the map away and stepped back. "You watching?" she asked. Outside the window, the wind moved through the trees like a breath withheld too long. Autumn didn't wait for an answer. They showed up in a cloud of gravel and volume. Dean in a truck loud enough to rattle porch glass, Lucas slamming the passenger door like he meant to tear it off the hinges. Autumn was on the front step, sipping coffee. No creamer, just heat and edge. Lucas stomped up first, still built like a linebacker long past his prime, beer belly tucked into a denim jacket 2 sizes too optimistic. Dean followed, jaw tight, chewing gum like it owed him something. "You out your damn mind?" Dean barked. "You think a signature gives you power?" Autumn didn't answer. She stood, slow and deliberate, and walked back inside. They followed, no knock, no pause, like they still believed this house answered to them. In the living room, the morning light cut in at a hard angle across the floor, catching the edge of a red folder already waiting on the table. Autumn picked it up and handed it to Dean like a waitress sliding a bill she knew he couldn't pay. "Copy of the will," she said. "Notarized, witnessed, filed. Page 12 outlines full executor authority. My name, not yours." Dean didn't take it. He just stared at her like he could burn the words off the paper. Lucas snatched it, flipped through, then scoffed. "Convenient, real convenient." Autumn raised an eyebrow. "You'll notice the date, it's from last year, before the stroke." Lucas flinched, just slightly. Dean's voice cracked louder now. "You don't get to sell our family land, that's not yours to—" "It was never yours," she said. "You were just squatting in someone else's legacy." Lucas stepped closer. Too close. Autumn didn't move. She lifted her phone from her coat pocket and tapped the screen once. A soft chime. Recording. "This conversation," she said evenly, "will be the last one we ever have that isn't under oath." Lucas hesitated. His eyes darted to the phone, then back to her. "You recording us?" "Yes." "That's illegal." "In Mississippi?" "Not unless I'm planning to sell the footage," she replied. "And you're not worth the data." Dean's fists curled at his sides. "You think you're some kind of queen now? Just 'cause Daddy picked you over his own nephews?" She smiled, thin, sharp. "I think I'm someone with keys, signatures, court approval, and 10 separate witnesses who remember exactly how you two used to throw beer bottles at my bedroom window while Calvin watched TV with the volume turned up." Lucas looked like he wanted to speak. Something mean, something clumsy, but nothing came out. Dean stepped back, spitting into the corner of the porch like he needed to mark it one last time. "This ain't over," he muttered. "It is for you," she said. "That's the part you keep missing." They turned, stormed down the steps, gravel spinning beneath their boots. Dean slammed his truck door hard enough to make the rear view tremble. The engine roared to life. As they reversed down the driveway, Lucas stuck his hand out the window and flipped her off without looking back. Autumn didn't respond. She stood in the doorway, calm as a sunrise. When the dust settled, she turned off the recording. Saved it. Sent a copy to her attorney with a single-line subject. "Incident log, McConnell boys, 7:16 a.m. Then she walked back inside, poured what was left of her coffee into the sink, and rinsed the cup clean. The courthouse smelled like lemon disinfectant and slow justice. Autumn sat at the petitioner's table, spine straight, hands folded on a leather folio. No pearls, no theatrics, just the same gray coat she'd worn to the appraisal meeting and a thin gold ring that hadn't left her finger since 1989. The McConnell cousins sat across from her, Dean in a blazer too tight across the gut, Lucas in a button-down he hadn't ironed. Their lawyer, a young man from Tupelo with a discount haircut and a folder full of desperation, cleared his throat every few minutes like punctuation. "Your Honor," he began, voice strained with effort, "we intend to show that Mr. Calvin McConnell was not of sound mind when he signed over executor rights to his estranged daughter, that the document in question—" "Estranged," Autumn said quietly, without turning. The judge, a woman with ash-blonde roots and glasses perched low on her nose, held up a hand. "Ms. McConnell," she said, "you'll have your turn." Autumn nodded once, sat back. Dean took the stand first. He swore with his right hand up like it meant something. "He was confused, Your Honor," Dean said, shifting in his seat. "Didn't know what month it was half the time. He was saying strange things, talking about old war buddies who'd been dead for years. My brother and I were there every weekend. We knew the man better than anyone." The judge glanced down. "You live on the property?" Dean hesitated. "Well, not officially, but—" "Thank you," she cut in. Lucas fared no better. He stammered through a half-story about Calvin mixing up names, then tried to pivot to how Autumn had always hated the land. When it was Autumn's turn, she didn't rise right away. She stood slowly, walked to the witness stand like someone stepping over a memory, and sat. Her voice was even, low, clear. "I was the primary caretaker for my father for 5 years," she said. "From the onset of his hypertension to the second stroke that left him nonverbal. I have medical reports dated, signed, and submitted to the court confirming he was of full cognitive capacity at the time he updated his estate." She didn't glance at Dean or Lucas. "I have a sworn affidavit from his attending physician, a video of him reading the new will aloud, a witness statement from the notary who sat with him, and calendar logs showing their visits, twice a month, usually on Sundays, always gone by supper." She paused. Let the silence fill with truth. "They're not here to protect him," she said. "They're here to protect what they thought they'd inherit." Dean shot up from the bench, red-faced. "You selfish bitch." "Mr. McConnell," the judge snapped. "Sit down." He didn't. Took one staggering step toward the bench before his attorney grabbed his elbow like a leash. Autumn didn't blink. The judge exhaled, made a notation on her pad, then looked up over her glasses. "This court finds the will to be valid. The medical documentation is clear. The witnesses credible. The video sufficient." Dean sagged in his seat like air had left the room. "The motion to enjoin the sale of assets is denied," the judge continued. "Executor authority remains with Ms. Autumn McConnell. Court is adjourned." The gavel didn't slam. It tapped, like punctuation. Autumn stood, walked to the judge's bench, met her eyes. "Thank you," she said. No smile, no bow, just fact. In the hallway, Dean muttered something under his breath. Lucas kicked the vending machine. Their lawyer peeled off down the corridor like he had better clients waiting, though he didn't. Outside, the sky was pale with mid-morning light. Autumn slid her sunglasses on and stepped down the stone steps like someone walking out of a storm they saw coming years ago. The listings went live on a Tuesday morning, uploaded by a junior associate at Halston Realty while eating oatmeal at her desk. The files were clean, 6 parcels, clearly mapped, professionally photographed, GPS tagged, and priced to move. Total value, $1.4 million. The farmhouse was listed separately. Autumn didn't inflate its worth for nostalgia. She priced it by the square foot, with deductions for foundation cracks and outdated plumbing. No emotional markup, no curated history, just a property with plumbing that groaned in winter and walls that had held too many secrets. By noon, the phones at Halston rang non-stop. Local developers wanted schematics. A solar co-op from Tennessee requested soil testing. 2 couples from out of state, one from Austin, another from Asheville, booked weekend flights. An agricultural preservation group emailed, asking if the old grain silos were still intact. They were. Autumn stood by while her realtor, Doreen Halston, thumbed through a legal pad stacked with buyer notes. Doreen was all shoulder pads and brisk optimism, the kind of woman who could smile and deliver bad news at the same time. "You sure about this price tiering?" she asked. "We could hold back a few parcels, build demand." "No," Autumn said. "I don't want demand. I want disappearance." Doreen blinked. "All right then." That evening, Autumn sent a single group text to the McConnell family thread, a digital relic still titled Calvin's Kids Plus Cousins, even though Calvin had never typed into it. The message read, "By next month, nothing will be yours." No sign-off, no emoji, just fact. Dean responded with a gif of a dumpster fire. Lucas sent nothing for 5 hours. Then came a call. Autumn didn't answer. 2 minutes later, a message. "I want parcel 3, the North Ridge. I'll match market." She replied, "Submit a bid like everyone else." He did, and he was outbid in 47 minutes by a restoration architect from Alabama who planned to turn it into an artist's retreat. Lucas countered twice. The architect raised casually each time. Clearly, money wasn't the issue. Autumn accepted the architect's final offer without blinking. Doreen called the moment it closed. "That one had a quick claw to it. Thought your cousin might try and weasel in under a trust shell." "He tried," Autumn said. But nostalgia doesn't wire faster than escrow. That weekend, survey flags peppered the property like splinters of a broken map, red for irrigation, blue for boundaries, yellow for demolition approval. Autumn watched them from the farmhouse porch, coffee in hand, boot heel propped on the railing. Down by the pecan grove, a couple walked the grounds with a clipboard and a camera, nodding slowly. She overheard the woman say, "This'd make a great soil education center." The man replied, "Or a hemp startup." Neither mentioned McConnell's. Good. Inside, the kitchen table bore the weight of 3 laptops and 2 legal folders. Her tax planner had emailed forms at dawn. Her lawyer's assistant sent e-signature links by lunchtime. Every dotted line met her signature within the hour. There were no second thoughts. No deep sighs before clicking confirm. By Friday, the McConnell legacy had a buyer's list longer than its genealogy. Dean sent a single message that evening. "You're erasing everything." Autumn didn't respond. Instead, she printed out the purchase agreement for Parcel 2, the one with the old cattle fence and the stone circle where Lucas used to light bottle rockets in summer. She folded it neatly and placed it in a blank envelope. Then she drove it 40 miles south. Calvin's room was the same. Warm, too quiet, stifled by a TV that never made sound. He sat where he always did, face like stone, mouth slightly ajar, eyes tracing her movements like a man reading through glass. She held up the envelope. "This one's gone," she said. 3 more this week." She placed it on his lap, "and no one's coming to save it." His gaze twitched, just once, toward the window. She looked too. Surveyors had marked the boundary flags in neon pink this time. They fluttered in the breeze like ribboned knives. The first letter came folded into a pastel card with sunflowers on the front and a crooked script that read, "Thinking of you." Inside, the message was handwritten in looping cursive. "We all go through things, Autumn. Doesn't mean you burn the whole field down." She didn't recognize the return address, likely someone from church decades ago. She filed it away in a folder labeled Noise, tucked behind her utility drawer beneath a stack of tax forms and old receipts. By Friday, the folder was fat. Some were typed, most handwritten, some anonymous. Others signed with full names as if daring her to respond. There were Bible verses underlined in red ink, clippings from local obituaries, even a child's crayon drawing with "Save the Farm" written in shaky block letters. Autumn read every single one. She never responded. The church across the highway rang its bell early that Sunday. Inside, Pastor Whitmore added a pointed prayer to his closing benediction. "And Lord, soften the hearts of those who forget where they come from." She sat in the back pew, didn't flinch. When it was done, she left without shaking a single hand. That night, the phone rang. Doreen's voice came through, tight with apology. "There's a reporter from the county paper who's asking around. Says the community's entitled to know why you're selling." "No comment," Autumn said. "He's quoting scripture." "That's fine," she replied. "God owns cattle. I own the deed." The next morning, a local columnist published a piece titled "Legacy Lost: When Land Stops Being Home." It featured a blurred photo of the farmhouse porch, Autumn barely visible in the shadowed doorway. Below it, a line that made her pause. "Sometimes it's not the land that's haunted, it's the silence." She clipped it and added it to the noise folder. Marla, the estate attorney's assistant, called later in the week with a nervous lilt in her voice. "Ms. McConnell, we recommend keeping a low profile. Press inquiries, community friction. It might agitate future litigation." "I'm not keeping a profile at all," Autumn said. "High or low?" "Still, public opinion. It swings fast in towns like this." "I'm not swinging," Autumn said. "I'm closing." She hung up. That Thursday, the movers arrived. 3 of them, young, tatted, efficient. She gave them coffee and handed them a hand-drawn map of the house. "Don't bother with the attic," she said. "Nothing up there worth dusting." They moved fast. Boxed photo albums, dismantled old furniture, labeled crates with things like kitchen, metal, and bedroom, no keep. She watched them roll Calvin's recliner out the front door like a body being removed without ceremony. One of the movers, a woman with braided hair and bright eyes, paused when they reached the dining room. "This hutch is real walnut," she said. "They don't make 'em like this anymore." Autumn nodded. "They didn't make men like him anymore either. Not a compliment." The woman gave a half smile. "Got it." By sunset, the house echoed. Room after room emptied, the sound of her own footsteps following her like a second heartbeat. The wallpaper peeled at the edges. The kitchen light buzzed, unbothered by the quiet. She found a stack of old hymnals in the hall closet, church leftovers from 1983, stained with candle wax and penciled notes. She carried them out to the porch, one arm cradling the stack like a broken baby. Then she lit a match. The paper burned fast, pages curling like petals folding in. She watched until the last page, Psalm 23, turned to ash. From the road, a passing car slowed. Someone rolled down a window. "You ought to be ashamed," a woman's voice called out. "Selling your daddy's land like that." Autumn didn't answer. She bent to pick up the last ember and dropped it into a rusted coffee can. The house was almost hollow now. Light came in harder. Dust settled faster. Everything left behind was intentional. Autumn stood in Calvin's old study, fingers brushing the edge of the bookshelf he never used for books. Half the spines were hollow props, Reader's Digest covers glued to plywood. Behind them, tucked away like a forgotten sin, was the wall safe. She reached behind a copy of The Longest Day and pressed the panel. Click. She turned the dial. Left, then right. The combination had never changed, not since 1975, when Calvin called her into the room and said, "You remember numbers better than I do." She remembered. Inside was a tarnished coin jar, a frayed envelope with old war bonds, and a green binder wrapped in rubber bands that had long since snapped. She took it out, the cover cool and dusty. Ledger. CMC. The initials stenciled in black. She opened it at the kitchen table, the room now stripped bare except for one chair and the low hiss of the radiator. The binder creaked, pages yellowed with time but ink still sharp. Columns, deposits, handwritten, entries in Calvin's slanted script. Dean, initial loan, $45,000, 2009, equipment startup. Lucas, bridge support, $32,500, 12, land tax holdover. Dean, supplementary, $8,000, 13, machinery loss claim, not repaid. Lucas, legal retainer, $5,600, 16, civil dispute, WA. McConnell, settled. Each line tightened something in her chest that had no name. The funds were drawn from a shared McConnell family account, not Calvin's personal reserves, not investments, family money, meant for emergencies, upkeep, inheritance. There were no repayment notes, no interest columns, no signatures, just withdrawals and fading justifications. Autumn flipped through every page. No mention of her, no support after her divorce, no coverage for her mother's burial, no entry after the hospital stay when she almost lost her vision from untreated hypertension. Just the boys, always the boys. She closed the binder, took a breath, then reopened it. She photographed every page, overhead shots on a black velvet placemat for clarity. Then she scanned the originals on her compact Canon, labeling each PDF with timestamps and batch tags. She took the entire thing, physical and digital, and drove it to the law office. Marla met her at the door, startled. "Ms. McConnell, where's Marianne?" "She's in court until—" "I need this filed in public record, discovery motion, probate ledger attachment." Marla blinked. "What is it?" "Fuel," Autumn said, "and fire insurance." She left before anyone could ask further questions. The story hit town like a lit match in dry leaves. By Monday, the courthouse digital registry had the uploads flagged as an addendum to the McConnell probate case. The title read, "Internal Estate Disbursement Records, Unsecured Beneficiary Loans." Someone printed them, someone posted them. By Wednesday, the coffee shop down the block had removed the Dean and Lucas Proud Customers sticker from its front window. At the hardware store, Autumn caught a man staring too long as she passed down the aisle. He didn't speak, just nodded once, slow, unsure, like someone unsure whether to offer apology or warning. Outside the post office, she overheard a teenager say, "She burned him with paper." Damn, Even the church newsletter stopped listing Lucas's truck repair shop in the sponsorship footer. She didn't revel in it. She didn't flinch either. When she returned home, the ledger went back into the safe, but only for record-keeping. Her copies were already with the legal team, the county registrar, and a notary in Baton Rouge. That evening, she sat at the table with a fresh manila folder marked Reclaimed. She placed inside it the scanned summaries, a handwritten note reading, "These weren't gifts. They were thefts dressed as loyalty." Then she sealed the folder, and at the bottom of the note, she added something new. Next, the threats. The first message wasn't written, it was carved. A single deep gouge along the side of her Buick, driver's door to back panel, precision work, not a teenager's joyride or a drunk's stagger. This was quiet rage, practiced and personal. Autumn stood in the gravel driveway and stared at it under the morning sun. The silver shimmer of exposed metal caught the light just enough to make her jaw set. She didn't call family. She called the sheriff's office. A deputy showed up 90 minutes later, all windbreaker and coffee breath, scribbling in a notebook like he had better things to do. "No prints," he said. "Could have been anyone." Autumn nodded. "Anyone who knew I don't park in the garage?" That night, she bolted the side door for the first time in 20 years. The deadbolt slid into place with a heavy, satisfying thud. Then came the chain, then a second padlock. Before bed, she opened a browser tab and ordered 4 outdoor cameras, motion-activated with cloud backup. 2 for the front porch, 1 for the shed, 1 angled at the driveway gate. Delivery ETA, 2 days. But by the next morning, her mailbox was gone, not damaged, gone. The wooden post it sat on stood clean and empty, sawed through at the base. The box itself had vanished like a pulled tooth. No note, no warning. Autumn didn't flinch. She took a photo, filed another police report, and had a replacement post hammered into place before dusk. This time, she nailed a small brass plaque to the side, "Private property, monitored and prosecuted." The cameras arrived early. She installed them herself. Ladder, drill, anchor screws. Every lens pointed like an accusation. That same afternoon, Marla called. "Ms. McConnell, Marianne wanted me to ask, do you want to preemptively file a protection order?" "Yes," Autumn said. "Include digital harassment." There was a pause. "Did something happen?" Autumn didn't answer right away. She opened her laptop and clicked on Dean's public Facebook page. Still open despite every piece of legal advice that begged him not to. The latest post was a grainy photo of the McConnell farmhouse porch at dusk, taken from a distance. Captioned, "She killed what we were raised to build. Now she calls it justice." Below it, hashtags, "Not my family," Jan McConnell lined eyes, with her one comment read, "Maybe someone ought to remind her where she came from." Autumn screenshot the post, saved the image, forwarded it to her attorney with the subject, "Harassment, 10:17 p.m., public profile." Then she blocked Dean across every platform. The following day, her lawyer filed a temporary restraining motion, protective in nature, covering both physical distance and digital content. It was granted pending review. Notices went out. Lucas, ever quieter, posted nothing. But she noticed he had unfollowed all local news pages, removed the McConnell Truck and Feed tagline from his LinkedIn, and updated his location to simply read, "Unknown." The house felt different now, not haunted, but aware. Like it, too, was waiting for the next move. Autumn started sleeping with a small flashlight on her nightstand, and a wooden bat leaned behind the front door. Just in case. Each evening she checked the security feeds. Playback on loop, just grainy shadows, wind-tossed branches, and the occasional deer. Then, one night, around 2:14 a.m., a figure stood at the fence line. Too far for a clear image, too close to ignore. No movement, no sound, just stillness. She watched the feed until it reset. When it did, the figure was gone. She didn't wake the police. She just clicked download, saved the file to her external drive, and labeled it fenceline_0214am.mp4. That morning, she had a new motion sensor light installed, the kind that didn't flicker, didn't delay. Later that week, she met her lawyer in town. "Are you okay?" Marianne asked. Autumn answered flatly, "They're loud now because their silence used to be law." Marianne nodded. "Anything else I should know?" Autumn reached into her bag and pulled out a padded envelope. Inside, a printed packet with photos of the keyed car, the severed mailbox, the Facebook post, and the fence line footage. On the front, written in her neat cursive, "They've started breaking things. Let's remind them I don't." The porch light flicked on as the delivery van pulled away, leaving behind the final packet of closing documents. Slim, padded, unmistakable. Autumn picked it up, turned it in her hands. The envelope had a certain gravity to it, less about weight, more about finality. Inside, the last deeds. She sat at the same kitchen table where Calvin once held court over family dinners with nothing but a grunt and a fork, where Lucas once broke a chair wrestling Dean for the last pork chop, where silence was the language and girls weren't spoken to, just over. Now, it was hers. She flipped through the pages. Parcel 5, purchased by a Tennessee-based solar cooperative, 50 acres of open field soon to be panels and wiring. Parcel 6, sold to an agri-tech company planning to trial vertical irrigation models. Parcel 2, once requested by Lucas, now under contract with the woman from Alabama, blueprints already drafted for an artist retreat. And the farmhouse. That one had taken longer. Buyers either lowballed out of pity or inflated the offer in exchange for sentimental ownership, until the woman from Asheville arrived. She was in her early 40s, short hair tucked behind her ears, eyes lined from weather and witnessing. She toured the place slowly, not looking at square footage or plumbing, but walking like she was trying to remember something she hadn't lived. "I run a trauma recovery center," she had said. "This house feels like it survived something. That's the kind of place people heal in." Autumn said only, "It's yours, if the check clears." It did. Full price. No haggle, no negotiation, a name she'd never heard, and a purpose no McConnell had ever imagined. Now every parcel was spoken for, every acre, erased. She straightened the stack of closing documents and opened her laptop. One last signature left, one video call to witness it. Marianne appeared on screen first. "All set?" Autumn nodded. "You confirmed the power of attorney window?" Marianne clicked her phone. "Yes. Calvin's nurse will join shortly." The video feed split. There he was, Calvin McConnell, slumped in a high-backed recliner, a fresh plaid blanket folded across his legs like decor. His face was papery now, liver spots and folds like loose stitching. Mouth parted, eyes dull, fixed. Autumn leaned in slightly. "You hear me?" No response. No blink. The nurse adjusted the angle. "He's had no verbal reaction today," she offered, "but we've observed tracking, sometimes blinking." "Good enough," Autumn said. She opened the deed to Parcel 1. The last one. The farmhouse, the porch, the tree line, the root cellar where secrets got buried deeper than rain. "I'm signing now," she said aloud, voice steady, transferring title and possession. As sole executor, as sole witness. The pen moved like a scalpel, deliberate, final. She signed her name once, then again, then on the last line, directly under. The bold text, "Grantor of Record." Autumn set the pen down, then looked straight at the camera. "You built a legacy with silence," she said, her voice dropping into something harder than rage. "I took it apart with law." Still no blink. The nurse stepped back into view. "That's all we needed, yes?" Marianne nodded. "We'll file the final transfer. All assets now liquid. All parcels transferred. Probate. Closed." Autumn said nothing, just stared. The call ended. She sat for a moment longer, hands resting on the closed manila folder. She rose slowly, walked to the window. Outside, the survey flags were gone. In their place stood signs, "Coming soon," future site plans, fresh tilled soil, the McConnell legacy already breaking down beneath shovels and hope. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marianne. "Nurse says he hasn't blinked in hours. They're running tests." Autumn stared at the screen. No emotion moved across her face. She typed back, "Silence suits him." She turned the phone face down, walked to the sink, and poured the last inch of coffee down the drain. Outside, the wind picked up, and with it, the last whispers of a name no longer tethered to anything but dirt and paper. The check was hand-delivered, not mailed. Autumn stood at the reception counter of a modest brick building just off the county line. The sign above the glass read, Willow Place, Rural Crisis Resource Center. The waiting room smelled like lemon balm and hand sanitizer. A young woman in scrubs offered a soft smile. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Autumn said, sliding the envelope across the counter. "But someone will want this." Inside the envelope, a cashier's check for $250,000 and a typed letter that began with one sentence, "Because someone should have opened the door for me." No name was signed at the bottom, just her mother's initials, in typewriter font, VRM. She didn't wait for a response, just turned, coat swinging lightly at her sides, and stepped out into the wind. That afternoon, she sat at her lawyer's office again. The conference table was buried in folders, escrow logs, sale receipts, disbursement records. Marla flipped through them with methodical grace, a red pen poised like a scalpel. "Tax declarations are finalized. You'll owe less than expected due to charitable disbursements," she said. "The scholarship fund will process separately." Autumn nodded. "Title it under her maiden name. Make that clear." Marla hesitated. "You sure you don't want it to carry the McConnell name? Might make it more visible?" Autumn said. "Number. My mother was invisible her whole life. It should stay that way. Quiet doesn't mean forgotten." The fund bylaws were explicit. No applicants with McConnell lineage or marriage eligibility shall qualify. It wasn't vengeance. It was filtration. A system designed to ensure fresh roots had room to grow. Autumn signed the last form and slid it back across the table. "You'll notify the clerk?" Marla nodded. "Yes, and I'll confirm the trust's transfer of your personal assets into the protective designation. The condo, too." "Speaking of," Autumn said, reaching for a small key ring on the table. "Closing's next week." The condo sat 3 hours southeast, beach-adjacent but not beachfront. A quiet 2-bedroom in a building full of retirees and war widows and people who didn't ask where your family was buried. Just how you took your coffee and whether you liked the Wednesday bridge game. No yard, no acreage, just a balcony and a breeze. The moving company needed 3 hours. What she took filled only 1 truck, a walnut bookshelf, 2 suitcases, 3 framed photos, none with family, her mother's quilt, and a ceramic owl paperweight from her first teaching job. Neighbors stopped by as the last box was taped shut. "You leaving for good?" one asked, peering over the porch rail. "Coast," Autumn said. "Quieter. Seems a shame, all this land. All that family history, just gone." Autumn looked out at the empty driveway. The flagged stakes had been pulled. The sold signs were upright. The pecan tree had dropped its last fruit, and no one was coming to rake them. She said, "That's the point." They left without further questions. She walked the rooms once more, not to linger, just to confirm nothing had been forgotten. The house echoed back only her own footsteps. Back in town, she filed the final estate paperwork at the county clerk's office. A short wait, 2 signatures, 1 stamped copy returned. On the way out, she passed the community bulletin board. Among the concert flyers and job postings, someone had pinned a photo from the Legacy Lost article. Her silhouette stood on the farmhouse porch, blurred and shadowed. Someone had scrawled over the top in permanent marker, "Witch." Autumn reached into her bag, pulled out a black Sharpie of her own, and wrote beneath it, "Executor." She capped the pen, walked out without turning back. At her new condo later that week, she stood barefoot on the balcony as gulls shrieked. Over the water and salt traced the air like memory. Her phone buzzed with a message from Marianne. "He's stable," still unresponsive. "Thought you'd want to know." Autumn stared at the screen, then turned it face down. She took a sip of tea, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Good." The envelope arrived certified. Autumn signed for it without flinching, then slid it open with the letter opener shaped like a heron's beak, a gift from a student long ago. Inside, McConnell vs. McConnell. Complaint for emotional distress, defamation, financial loss. Dean had filed in civil court, claimed public humiliation, damages to reputation, accused her of slander, misappropriation, and psychological warfare. Autumn read the pages like one reads weather warnings, slow, methodical, unsurprised. When she got to the section marked irreparable damage to familial legacy, she actually laughed. So did her legal team. Marianne read the complaint over the speakerphone, barely keeping her composure. "Legacy destruction?" she said. "Is that a charge now?" "Only if you're suing a flood," Autumn replied. They filed a countersuit within 48 hours. McConnell vs. McConnell, counterclaim, defamation, harassment, intimidation, malicious interference. Her attorney submitted 6 exhibits. Among them, the photos of the keyed Buick, the Facebook post with number McConnell line dies with her footage from the 2:14 a.m. fence line incident, the anonymous hate mail with matching ink and Dean's handwriting, confirmed by a retired postal clerk, the voicemail he accidentally left while ranting to someone else about ruining her soft-spoken ass. The pre-hearing date was set for a Monday morning. Dean didn't show. His lawyer arrived late and visibly frazzled. "My client's car wouldn't start," he told the judge. "He requests a continuance." The judge, the same one who had ruled on the executor case, didn't blink. "Denied. This is a pattern, not a setback." She flipped through the countersuit and frowned. Mr. McConnell is accusing his cousin of emotional terrorism while posting veiled threats online and skipping mandatory appearances. Does he understand what irony means? The lawyer adjusted his collar. "Your Honor, we request withdrawal from representation." "Granted," the judge said. She turned to Autumn's team. "Do you have a motion prepared?" Marianne stood. "We move for dismissal of the original complaint and a motion to move the countersuit into accelerated hearing. Defendant failed to comply with court procedure and has a documented history of targeted aggression." The judge nodded. "Both granted." The gavel tapped once. Not a slam, just a punctuation mark in the long sentence of justice. Autumn rose, collected her folder, said nothing. In the hallway, Marianne caught up to her. "You want to celebrate?" "No," Autumn said. "I want to finish." Outside, the wind scraped dry leaves across the parking lot. Across the street, the diner where Dean once drank coffee on Saturday mornings now had a new chalkboard out front. Soup of the day, no bull. Autumn smiled for the first time in weeks, but only briefly. Later that day, she received a letter in an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single sentence. "You didn't win anything. You just made everything smaller." She stared at the page, then flipped it over. Blank. She folded it once, then once more, then dropped it into the shredder. It hummed quietly. Ate the message like it had never existed. As she walked out onto her condo balcony, seagulls circled overhead, and a radio from a neighbor's unit played old gospel music. Faint, like the sound of someone else's memory. Autumn poured herself a glass of ginger ale. No ice. She stood there, watching the sea, as the waves whispered the same thing over and over again. Gone. 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 The envelope was cream-colored, thick, hand-addressed. No postmark. Someone had slipped it under her condo door. Autumn found it the morning after the court ruling, resting on the tile like it belonged there. Inside, a card. No florals, no pre-printed sentiment, just plain cardstock and a short, careful message written in steady blue ink. "I always wondered why no one stopped them. I don't wonder anymore. I'm sorry it took me this long to say something. Marianne." No return address, no phone number, just the name, Lucas's daughter. Autumn sat with the card for a long time, not moved, just still, like someone watching a ripple to see if it would become a wave. 2 days later, she texted a number from an old Christmas list she once used to purge everyone she didn't need. "Wednesday, 3 p.m., Patterson Park, South Bench near the pond. If this is still your number, show up. If not, I lose nothing." Marianne arrived 5 minutes early. She looked older than 28. Not aged, exactly, but weathered in a way that made her feel carved rather than grown. Worn jeans, scuffed boots, auburn hair tied up in a knot that had clearly been redone 3 times that morning. Autumn sat on the bench, posture exact. She didn't wave, didn't smile. "Thanks for coming," Marianne said first. Autumn glanced sideways. "I didn't come for thanks." "I know." They sat in silence for a moment. Ducks coasted lazily across the pond. A child dropped goldfish crackers on the path and yelled at pigeons. The world didn't seem to care that two McConnells were trying not to speak like McConnells. "I knew something was wrong back then," Marianne said. "I was 12. I didn't have the words. But I saw what they were. What they did." Autumn said nothing. "My mom, she never asked questions. Or if she did, she never said the answers out loud." Marianne looked down. "I hated that silence. That kind of quiet eats people." Autumn finally spoke. "It grows them too, if you don't stop it early." Marianne nodded. "I left at 18. Haven't spoken to my dad since. I've kept track of what you've done. Not out of spite, just relevance. Context." Autumn looked at her fully now. "And?" Marianne inhaled like she was stepping into cold water. "I want to help. With the fund, Willow Place. Whatever it is you're building, I'd like to contribute. Volunteer, admin work, street outreach. I'm good at logistics. I know the counties where people still think bruises are earned." Autumn studied her, measured the words for cracks, falsehoods. There weren't any. "You don't want forgiveness?" Autumn asked. "No," Marianne said quickly. "That's family vocabulary. I want function, repair, something useful." Autumn gave a small nod. Not approval, acknowledgement. "Send your credentials to Marianne at the firm," she said. "Let them vet you. Treat it like a job, not a reunion." "Of course." They sat again in silence. The ducks were gone now, only the water moved. Marianne pulled a small envelope from her coat pocket. "There's something else." Autumn didn't reach for it. Marianne set it on the bench between them. "It's from my grandmother," she said. "She passed when I was 16. Dad didn't let anyone outside the family speak at the funeral, but I found this in her sewing kit later. It was addressed to you." Autumn slowly picked it up. The handwriting was shaky, but unmistakable. Her mother's. The envelope was sealed. She didn't open it. Not yet. "I won't ask what it says," Marianne said. "I just thought you should decide whether it says anything at all." They sat 5 more minutes before parting. No hug, no promise. Just two women walking away from the same bench in different directions. That night, Autumn sat at her kitchen table again. The letter rested beside her teacup. She didn't touch it. Instead, she opened a new spreadsheet titled Willow Expansion, Satellite Locations. And underneath it, she typed, "Assistant Coordinator, Marianne C. McConnell, pending clearance, start date TBD." She saved the file, then reached for the envelope, but didn't open it. Not yet. The condo was quiet, but not silent. Autumn moved through the space like she was closing a library for the night, gentle, deliberate, certain that everything had a place and nothing needed to be rushed anymore. The manila folder sat open on the counter, its tab labeled in her handwriting, Estate, Final Closure. Inside were account numbers, closing confirmations, wire transfer logs, and a notarized receipt of full probate discharge. She reviewed each page, one final check before uploading to her legal archive. No typos, no loose ends, nothing that could be misread, misfiled, or misused. At the bottom of the folder was a flash drive. She inserted it into her laptop. The files opened automatically, old voicemails she'd saved more out of habit than sentiment. Some from banks, a few from Marianne the attorney, one from the realtor with her usual circle-back energy, and then Dean's. "You think you're righteous? You think this is justice? You're just mean and alone, and one day you'll choke on all this silence you're drowning in." Autumn sat back in her chair, not angry, not shaken, just done. She selected the file. Right-clicked. Delete, confirm, empty trash. She did the same with 3 more voicemails that had never said anything new, just echoes pretending to be arguments. Then she opened her personal asset trust document and began the transfer. The condo, the account that held her remainder settlement, the modest annuity left from her teaching pension. Everything moved into a sealed trust under the name Harbor 11, managed by a fiduciary firm with no ties to anyone named McConnell. Beneficiaries? Listed simply, to be directed upon death by letter of intent. Family name not to govern distribution. The trust would outlive her. That was the point. Next came her living will. She edited the document carefully, eyes narrowing at the language that left too much room for interpretation. She rewrote one paragraph completely. No visitors permitted unless legally documented as care providers, attorneys, or agents under medical designation. No family, no legacy claimants, no appeals. She signed and dated it, sent a scanned copy to her attorney and her primary care physician, then backed it up twice, once in the cloud, once to a secure flash drive labeled in red, "Enforce this." It was close to sunset when she received the text from Naomi, the trauma center founder who had bought the farmhouse. "Big thanks for the donation list. Can I post the picture of us with the new plaque?" Autumn replied, "Yes, no tags." Just post an hour later, Naomi uploaded the photo. The two of them stood under the rebuilt farmhouse porch beam, where a brass sign now read, "The Quiet Foundation, established in memory of VRM, a place for silence to be healed, not obeyed." The post was simple. No hashtags, no bio links, but within a day it spread. Women shared it. Advocates shared it. Survivors shared it. One comment read, "I don't know who she is, but she looks like someone who's already done the fighting." Another read, "This house is a sermon." Autumn saw the notifications and let them pass, the same way she now let wind move the balcony plants without adjusting them, the same way she let the tide answer back without needing to interpret the rhythm. Then, that Friday, a letter arrived from Calvin's nursing home. Standard font, pale blue envelope. Inside, a short, formal request. "We are updating Mr. Calvin McConnell's estate records. Kindly confirm current next of kin and any updated legal contacts associated with his care. If no guardian is to be listed, please indicate." Autumn folded the letter in half. She placed it in the shredder, then opened a new document on her computer. Typed 3 words, "No one left." She saved it, printed it, slipped it into her personal file behind her power of attorney. Then she poured herself a glass of water, stepped onto the balcony, and watched the horizon begin its nightly ritual of disappearing. The call came at 6:04 a.m. Autumn was already up, sitting on the balcony with a blanket over her legs and a mug of steeped ginger tea cooling in her hand. The phone buzzed once, twice, then settled into its ring like a distant alarm no one truly planned to answer. She picked it up on the 4th ring. "Ms. McConnell?" the voice said. Male, tired, routine. "This is Joseph from Serenity Pines Extended Care. I'm sorry to inform you, your father, Mr. Calvin McConnell, passed during the night. Peacefully. No struggle. The attending nurse noted time of death at 3:42 a.m. Autumn said nothing. "There's a next of kin protocol," he continued. "Disposition of remains, burial or cremation preference, if you're—" "No action needed," she said evenly. "Defer to state process. I'm not claiming." There was a pause, papers shuffled in the background. "So, you want the county to arrange the burial?" "Yes." "Understood. We'll follow default procedure unless otherwise directed." He hesitated, some instinct kicking in, maybe empathy or just awkward habit. "Would you like to say anything for the record?" Autumn looked out toward the horizon. The sky hadn't changed. "No." She hung up. The phone didn't ring again that day, except once, hours later, just before dusk. A number she hadn't blocked, but hadn't saved either. Lucas. She watched the screen buzz for a while. His name pulsed, then vanished. No voicemail followed, no second attempt. That evening, she opened her inbox. One new message from Marianne. The younger one, not the lawyer. Subject: "Thank you. I heard from one of the nurses. I'm sorry for what that generation left us with. I know none of it changes now. But thank you for not carrying it forward." Autumn read the words twice, then moved the email to a folder titled Replanting. She didn't respond. At nightfall, she opened the drawer beside her kitchen counter, pulled out a white pillar candle, unscented, unbranded. She placed it in a shallow ceramic dish, her mother's, chipped on one edge, and lit the wick with a long match. The flame caught slow, trembling like it wasn't sure it wanted the job. She watched it burn for a full hour, sitting cross-legged on the rug with the lights off and her phone silenced, not mourning, not remembering, just marking time. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. When the flame dipped low, she snuffed it with the back of a spoon and left the wax to cool in silence. She did not write an obituary, did not call the local paper, no final words, no preceded in death, no loving father of. There was no ceremony, no printed program, no hymnal numbers circled, just a man who died in a bed he didn't earn, surrounded by strangers who didn't know the volume of his silences or the names of the people who had once tried to fill them. On Saturday, a neighbor from the third floor knocked, an older woman with a casserole dish and too many questions in her smile. "We hadn't seen you. Thought maybe someone passed?" Autumn accepted the dish. "No one I was waiting for." The woman blinked, nodded too quickly, and retreated down the hall. Autumn closed the door. In the kitchen, she uncovered the casserole. Potato and onion, baked in some kind of cream sauce. Still warm. She slid it into the fridge without taking a bite. On her desk sat the letter from her mother. Still sealed. She picked it up, turned it over. Not to open it, but to hold it. The way someone might hold a door closed, not to block what's outside, but to keep from walking through. Then she put it back in the drawer. The condo was quiet again. The kind of quiet that didn't ask for anything. The kind of quiet that stayed when everyone else had finally left. The band wasn't gold. It wasn't silver. It was a thin, worn loop of dull metal with barely legible engraving on the inside. Always. Even when silent. It had once belonged to her mother, then to no one, then to Autumn's nightstand drawer for 15 years. Now it sat at the bottom of a small cedar box lined with linen. She placed the lid on top, locked it with a tiny brass key, then taped a single word across its surface in plain black ink. Enough. The key went into an envelope labeled "Documents." Not to be opened. She tucked it behind her new power of attorney form in the fireproof safe under the bed. Outside, seagulls shrieked like they were arguing over something that didn't matter. Monday mornings didn't hold meaning now, but they held routine. Autumn pulled on a pale gray cardigan, tied her hair into a clean twist, and grabbed a cloth tote from the hallway hook. Inside, one paperback mystery novel for break time, a folder of intake forms, and a tin of peppermint chews for the front desk. The women's center sat 3 blocks from the boardwalk, in a renovated Victorian with seafoam shutters, and a backyard garden half-tamed by local volunteers. Autumn worked the front desk twice a week, filing, logging, listening, not advising, not rescuing, just showing up. Consistency heals more than sermons, Naomi had once said, scribbling it on a sticky note and slapping it onto the fridge at the Quiet Foundation. Autumn had nodded and said nothing. She didn't attend group sessions, didn't speak in the staff circle, but every now and then, someone would sit beside her, hands shaking, and whisper, "I don't even know where to begin." Autumn would reply, soft but firm, "Begin with what's yours, and what isn't." Back home, her condo bore no family photos, no McConnell name anywhere. The walls were clean, not bare, just chosen. One framed print of a Georgia O'Keeffe bloom, enlarged so much it looked like a landscape. A calendar with no birthdays marked, a shelf lined with books on estate law, trauma recovery, and soil science, oddly curated, tightly organized. Her desk held a manuscript now. Working title, What to Lock, What to Leave, A Financial Survivor's Guide for Women Over 60. It was half memoir, half roadmap. She had no agent, no publisher, just a folder of chapters and a quiet confidence that someone would need it one day. She poured coffee in the early afternoon. No sugar, no milk, just heat and intent. Then she sat, not thinking, not remembering, just being. The room held no tension anymore, no echoes, only stillness. She picked up her pen, wrote 3 more lines, edited 1 paragraph for clarity, then closed the file, saved, backed up, logged off. Her phone vibrated once with a calendar alert. Dentist check-in, Thursday 10:30. Nothing else. She looked out the window. The sun hung low, not fading, just folding into itself. She didn't miss the land. She didn't miss the name. There were days she still checked the door lock 3 times, out of muscle memory more than fear. There were nights she left the candle unlit just to prove she didn't need it, but the sharp edges were gone, smoothed by routine, washed by time. She returned to the safe one final time that week, not to add anything, not to remove, just to feel the cool metal of the key, just to remember what she had locked away and why. She whispered something to the darkness as she shut the door again, not a prayer, not a curse, just punctuation. Then she poured the last of the coffee, stepped onto the balcony, and let the wind speak in sentences only the sea knew how to end. He watched, I made sure, and then I left him nothing to remember.